What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 682 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk Hot Tags of the Week and the pay-per-view point post-show. Nope, not post-show. I'm already just skipping ahead. The pay-per-view point prediction.
Yeah, you said that. Never mind. We're just done here.
I am so checked out for this year. It is the pay-per-view point pre-show prediction side of things, the preview of AEW Worlds, and I am barely here, but I'm also Tony Manco, joined by Robert E. Felice.
I'm also here.
And Callum Wiggins.
Hello there.
And yeah, man, I have been completely checked out for these past bunch of days. That's why, even when it comes to our usual recap of what happened this week, I don't know. I didn't watch anything. I have not watched any TV of the Raw, SmackDown, any of that kind of stuff, except for the little bits and pieces that I absolutely needed to. So it's going to be a weird episode of the Hot Tags, the final Hot Tags of the year of 2024. And as I said, we're going to lump in our predictions for AEW World's End instead of doing a separate video for that, because we don't really have a whole lot of hot tags to talk about, and it was easier to just do it this way. So you know the score as always. We always want to know what you have to say. So hit up the Discord server if you want to chat it up there. If you want to be on Facebook or Twitter or any of the other kind of methods, even on the pages on smarkmoma.com, there's great ways to do that too. If you are on YouTube, make sure you leave a comment below. Also hit the like button. Double check you are subscribed. Ring the notification bell. Go ahead and click on that join button as well and get access to all the different things you would on the Patreon. It's all the same. The only difference being you get a little icon next to your name on the YouTube side of that, and you get to have early access for content if we post it ahead of time. And we did that for anybody that was interested in checking out the WWE End of the Year Awards and the AEW End of the Year Awards. So I know that some people were able to check that out in advance. And if you didn't check that out by now, it's already up. So go back and check them out. Redbubble and TeePublic, you can pick up your merchandise. Click on the thanks button if you want to toss a little spare change our way. We will have a post show of AEW Worlds End in some fashion and form tomorrow night after the pay-per-view. So that also has the opportunity for the super chats and all the good stuff that goes along with that. But let's get into these hot tags, and then we'll wrap around with the World's End side of things. As mentioned before, we don't have a whole lot of hot tags to talk about, and a lot of the TV stuff was already pre-taped. That's why I was able to just ignore it. As far as I'm aware, nothing wild happened outside of that, because the little bits and pieces of the news that I had seen really didn't seem to indicate anything else. It was like, all right, that stuff has already been announced. That stuff was pretty obvious the way that it would go. Like, hey, I wonder if Shotzi and Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley are going to have a 6-woman tag against Fatal Influence. Well, yeah, so they are, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So we talked about all those things as much as we pretty much can, but any other mix in there? I know that one thing we didn't talk about yet is ROH Final Battle, and we can't talk too much about it because none of us watched it. But I had it on.
Yeah, I was saying, you're the one that had it on.
I had it on, and I had it on as for anybody who's not aware of my setup, I have my computer screen, I have a TV that I use as a second monitor, and then I have my living room TV is above that. So I have 3 screens, and naturally you can have multiple, like, you know, windows inside of those screens. So I had it on the right-hand side of my second monitor. And then on the left-hand side, I forget what I had. I think I might have had, like, the results page to, like, continue to refresh that and, like, type the things that had happened. And then the computer monitor itself, I don't think I had anything on that at all. And then on my main TV, I think I was watching Survivor or something. And I was just like, oh, okay, so a match ended. Okay, that person's standing tall. I couldn't get invested into it. ROH is exactly what I kind of am not super tapped into when it's like, man, aren't you really excited to see I don't know, Atlantis against Mansoor or Red Velvet against Layla Hirsch. I'm like, nah, I don't know what's going on with any of that. And nothing seemed to wow me. The only things that did wow me that I did see was Nigel McGuinness popped up. And I was like, okay, cool, that's Nigel McGuinness. I hope he wins the belt. Never mind, he didn't.
One of the things that did pop up in that Atlantis Mansoor match is Danhausen came back.
Yeah, Danhausen's back, so that answers one question of, is he going to appear at anything at all this entire year? And it's going to be the last.
Mason the balls.
Yeah. They surprised me with how little happened actually on this show, because not only is this like the final ROH pay-per-view of the year, but like you only have a few of them in the year. And when I was going through the results and I was like, you know, typing things out as it happened, I was just like, shit, is anything going to happen on this show? And you get to like Red Velvet retains, Lee Moriarty retains, Sons of Texas retain, Commander beats Brian Cage and wins the survival of the fittest match. So once Brian Cage got taken out, it was like, okay, there's going to be a new champion. People were super into Commander winning that. Jericho retains over Matt Cardona, and Athena retains over Billie Starkz. And I was like, okay, so what are you going to do? You're going to wait until a third year for the Athena and Billie Starkz thing? Or is this just to keep the belt on Athena heading into Wrestle Dynasty and then she's going to drop it right afterward? How do you guys feel about that?
I am now convinced that there is a potential chance Ring of Honor gets the Rampage slot. And maybe they just want to do it on TV. That's where my mind is going.
Rampage spot on like TNT, TBS or something?
Yeah, on TNT. That Friday night wrestling slot.
I think there's definitely a real possibility that Ring of Honor is heading towards a television deal, but I don't think that it's going to be on TBS or TNT or anything connected to that. I think it's going to be on probably something like True T or something along those lines. Just you know, a more lower level program, which will be easier for them to get on if you can just at least prove that the wrestling boom will help attract more viewers than something else that would have otherwise been on its in its time slot. I mean, in terms of the show itself, I think they kind of, as I having not watched it, I can't really speak to its overall quality. It does seem like it was like largely a lot of vibes attached to the fact that they were in the Hammerstein Ballroom, and the aesthetic of the show looked really good in that regard. You did have some nice spots having Nigel McGuinness show up. He didn't win the Pure Championship. Having him kind of involved in Ring of Honor would be a good benefit for them. Red Velvet won by heelish means, so I presume she is turning heel off the back of that because she cheated to beat Layla Hirsch, so there's at least like an alignment switch for her incoming. Commander winning was great because Commander's been doing excellent stuff in the Continental Classic. Obviously, he is there primarily just to lose the matches. Only won one match, and that was this week's show. But I think that him winning the television title was a good stepping stone for him if they are going to utilise him more, because he's getting better and better with each passing week and every big match that he's having recently. In the Jericho match, Bandido returned as well. That's why they decided to have the big return of Bandido.
Yeah, big return. And he got about, 12 seconds into it before he got a concussion?
Oh, did he get a concussion? I didn't know.
Yeah, he did that missile drop kick and just pop, and then he was like stumbling around, and you could hear the referee telling Big Cass to be like, you gotta like leave the ring and whatever. And
yeah, so obviously that was a bad timing. It meant that we didn't see any like Bandido on the following episode of Ring of Honor, and Jericho didn't mention him really at all after doing his little stuff on Dynamite. So I think the long-term plan is probably to have Jericho drop the title to Bandido, or at least the plan would have been that as soon as Bandido get healthy again.
It was who reported it, but it was stated that Jericho versus Bandido was a plan. So I don't know if he's going to drop it to him, but that was definitely somewhere they wanted to go.
I mean, yeah, they seemed like they were pretty much going to go with that's the next title match, whether or not the title change was like imminent, or if it was just let's try to set up Bandido to be a viable challenger. I guess that is something we're gonna have to find out in the future when he's like cleared. But I saw that kind of happening, and I was just kind of like, I actually didn't even know about the concussion at first because I was paying so little attention to it. So when Bandido comes out, I was like, oh shit, okay, Bandido's coming out for this instead of AEW. That's kind of strange. And he's doing something in the ring. Let me go like pay attention to whatever else I was doing. And then I got a message from my friend Dane, who's just kind of like, oh man, did you see this concussion that happened? I'm like, wait, let me go back and check it out. And once I watched it again, I was like, oh fuck, that looks so bad that it's just like, here's Bandido and okay, he's injured. Hopefully he recovers very quickly about this, and it's just one of those oddball scenarios, not like, all right, he's going to be out for the next couple of months or something, and but like, damn, you can't have something happen on the show without it being like a womp womp, because, hey, Nigel's here. Never mind, he doesn't win. Hey, there's Bandido. He's injured. This ultimately just came across to me as an event that was just like, if you're trying to sell me on, oh man, Ring of Honor is must see, I think you sold me on it. It's must miss.
I don't want to like judge that based on the fact that I didn't watch it. As I say, the reason why I didn't watch it was that I wasn't particularly interested going into it. But that's because of the feuds and the stories going into it. The show itself could have been really good, for all I know. That's usually the case, or I've had in the past. But based on like cage match ratings, cage match got of like a 6.72, so pretty much like a good, not great sort of show. But the best matches they had out of it was the Commander winning the Survival of the Fittest match, which seemed to be the most over result of the night, and the Lee Moriarty and Nigel McGuinness match. Like the Jericho and Matt Cardona match has been given a 2.81. But that's because cage match and everyone and kind of anyone in the internet wrestling community seems to hate Chris Jericho now, and so they kind of low score down. So realistically, if it's 2.81, it's probably like a 4. It probably wasn't a good match anyway, because Jericho can't really work that well anymore. But and the Athena thing, it's a case of, well, I think that title reign is already a year overdue anyway. She should have lost it in the first match that she had with Billie Starkz, but they've decided to continue on. It's gotten, like, the buzz for it has just completely dissipated. Yeah, she might be the longest reigning champion in Ring of Honor's history, but it doesn't mean anything if no one actually is there to watch you do it. So yeah, I think that maybe her holding the title was just so she goes into it. But on the episode of Ring of Honor this week, they did the whole Minion exclusion meeting, where they Athena announced that Lexi Nair had been excluded from her Minion status, and so she's been packed up and sent away. And so it's now just Athena and Billie Starkz again, like it was before. So I guess that's kind of like, again, another element of her delusion coming in.
Well, the idea being, oh, you're with me forever, it's me and you forever, and now Billie's like, yeah, no, I actually just want to fight you again. And I think the idea is that Athena's afraid to get her a third time because she knows.
I don't know why, though.
Like, surely
Athena would be like on top of the world if like Chacho said, like, I've already beaten you twice in a row. Like, what's the point of you facing me again? Or would have to put something up, like have Billie like put something up in terms of like her career or anything along those lines in order to get the match against Athena, because Athena's got nothing to prove against her anymore. So, but yeah, as I say, I'm not a big fan of how that storyline has progressed past. Well, I thought that was a really good storyline heading into last year's Final Battle, and everything since then has just been a bit meh. As has been the case with much of Ring of Honor. And I think until they do get this TV deal, I don't think they're going to take it particularly seriously. But in order to take it serious, in order to get that TV deal, they've got to take it somewhat seriously to get people's interested in. But I think the likelihood is that they're just treading water and in the belief that those negotiations are going on, and they will find a slot somewhere.
Well, speaking on the TV side of things, we know some information about Netflix. We know some projects that are going to be added to the mix, which there's 5 things that they've announced, and they all seem like you don't need to watch them. It's WWE Top 10, WWE Road to WrestleMania, Superstar Profiles, Legends Profiles, and Raw Classics. Every single one of them is just another recap, documentary footage type of show. Raw Classics is going to be hosted by Big E, but it's basically just going to be like, hey, look at this footage from Raw in the past. Road to WrestleMania is listed as being, what was the big sales pitch for that one? Let me read it. Raw's journey to the grandest stage of them all, where must-see matches and thrilling moments will be compiled and highlighted, according to Wrestling Inc. AKA
That
the same thing. Superstar Profiles and Legends Profiles. Does that even need to be 2 separate shows? They're Legends were Superstars.
Yes, because one's going to focus on a collection of matches for the modern people, and the other one's going to focus on here's your Hogan, here's your Flair, here's your Warrior, your Shawn Michaels.
It doesn't sound like it's 2 separate shows, though. It sounds like it's just, you could call it Superstar Profiles and just be like, here's one of the legends and here's one of the new people, you know?
Hey, shut up.
They're like, what can we maximize and minimize at the same time? It's the same as everything else. It's, you know, the littlest amount of effort to try to get the most squeak out of it. Want that bubble to pop so bad. Top 10. It is
popping. It's terrible. Don't get me started.
Top 10 is like, well, if it's just going to be top 10 of what it seems like best matches of Raw, then that's Raw Classics.
Yeah, for some reason, the top 10 thing is exclusive to Raw. The Road to WrestleMania thing isn't as Raw specified for me as what you were reading, but it is kind of like in that same vein. Like Road to WrestleMania for me says Road to WrestleMania goes through Raw. Wait. Why is so,
Raw specific? Because that's all they have the connection to, I guess, is the Raw stuff. So it's going to be top 10 Raw things, Raw greatest moments, and moments from Raw that led to WrestleMania. And then, so you're going to have 3 extra shows of remember the shit that happened from Raw. I don't see any reason to watch these types of shows. If you're somebody who is well-versed enough in it, like the 3 of us are, and the people that are listening to this podcast are, you've seen enough of these documentaries, and you've seen these matches and all plenty times. You don't need to watch them again. And if you're somebody who's like a brand new casual type of person, these shows are never really interesting enough to hook somebody like that. And maybe it's a tax write-off thing. I'm very suspicious these days after the whole WB thing of like specifically creating projects and going through and spending the money just to write it off and say, well, we're not going to release it. Maybe it's just like, technically we can say we hired people to do programs. We have 5 programs. There you go. We didn't do anything for it, but it cost us a penny to do it. Realistically, all these 5 shows only need at like in 2024, 2025, you really only need like 3 people to make this show. Because you need one person to dig through the archives, which they probably have all the metadata set up in a way that it's like super easy. One person to, and it could be the same actual person that's doing the effort for this too, if you're really skimping on it. One person to like categorize, okay, let's put these in this order, and then one person to throw that into Final Cut and edit it, and that's it.
Well,
I'm not going to be watching it.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because as you mentioned, this isn't for fans like us, because we've been watching all this stuff, we know this stuff happens. And they say it's pretty easy to make content that if you're trying to have a more substantial body of WWE-based content onto Netflix, at the end of the day, this is a different arena for them. This is a different place where they can attract new fans. And I know what you're saying, that this sort of stuff typically isn't interesting enough to attract new fans, but you're looking at that from the perspective of someone who is a wrestling fan or has watched all of this stuff. So you're not really in a good position to judge whether it's good at attracting new fans or not. Because you don't have that secondary perspective of saying like, well, I've got to try and put myself in the mindset of if I was a new fan. It's difficult to do that if you've been watching for as long as we all have. So we don't know what attracts new fans these days. New fans are TikTok watchers and people of that sort of build. They like this whole bite size, top 10, get all this stuff out of the way super quickly. It's like, oh, just want to see the buzzword points, and then if they're more interested, they may look into it a little bit more deeply. That's like, this is purely to pursue people that aren't watching WWE regularly right now and try and get them on the hook more frequently. So at the end of the day, it's cheap to make content that has a potential to get people interested if they choose some more interesting topics, and they might convert some people that way.
Yeah, he's right. In the sense that it's hard for us to do this, but you have to shut your brain off in that way and go, oh, there are people who are actually super into, maybe they'll watch that segment of Raw or keep up with Raw exclusively through the Road to WrestleMania thing, because it'll be like, here's basically what you need to know, which I don't understand it from the perspective of, isn't that defeating the point of, hey, watch Raw on Netflix? But maybe they don't care as long as people are watching WWE content on Netflix.
I just look at that and I go, I think if I were to apply this to something that isn't wrestling and do the same thing for something that I'm not into, this wouldn't stand out to me. Like if I saw NFL top 10, I'd be like, I don't care. What's special about it? And if it was like specifically just Monday Night Football classics, all right, well, if I really care, I would want to see the classics from everything and not just the one thing on there. Or Road to WrestleMania if it was like the Road to the Super Bowl. I think you need something more bombastic. You need like the Mr. McMahon documentary got people that was watching it that they didn't normally do that. Like I talked to people that, through like, I forget if it was like somebody that was like my dental hygienist or something, like somebody or whatever. I've talked to a couple different people that were like, oh, I saw that was this thing about Vince McMahon on Netflix and it looked pretty interesting and I watched it and whatever. Because that seemed like it was like, oh, they immediately pitched it as this is like a scandal thing. This is like a Tiger King type thing. If you just pop up with Raw Classics, I can't see anybody being like, let me give this a shot. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe they will.
But maybe people look at it and they go, oh my God, I remember Stone Cold. I'll watch this while I'm eating. It's all about just catching people in whatever weird vibe they're in. Because as we've learned here more than ever, life is 95% vibes.
It's really
right
vibe is like the only thing people care about anymore. Yeah,
everything else is whatever.
Yeah, so, and also the Man thing's a special case as well because it's like you can't just. It's not like WWE's going to make a slew of documentary series talking about Chris Benoit and Jimmy Snuka and all of that stuff because it makes them look bad. So, and the McMahon thing isn't a WWE produced thing, so of course there are people that were looking at it and feel like, oh, did you know about this and know about that? And it's like, so I'd say if WWE has to do something, I mean, they have to treat it in the same way that other people would treat these sports stuff, because all sports, like YouTube channels and TikTok feeds, all that, are full of like just highlight packages of like great matches, great moments, great like performers, great athletes doing their stuff. And you just have to hope that enough people look at that stuff and say like, oh, that looks super fun, and then just get hooked into the rigmarole of things, because all sports isn't like that 100% of the time. That's only the fleeting moments, but you just want people to see the fleeting moments and feel attached to it enough that they'll just come back and watch every now and again.
If I were in that case, though, I'd be pitching, why don't we do more story-based documentary things? Like, instead of saying Raw Classics, why not pitch it as like its own little series and call it something like, I mean, I don't know, I'd have to like, workshop ideas, but like you want to do like the Stone Cold and McMahon feud, and you give it some kind of name that makes it seem like it's like like the typical documentaries where you might want to check out like a JonBenet Ramsey thing, and it would be called something like Disturbed, the horrifying case of JonBenet Ramsey. Like, call it something like, Stomp in a Mud Hole, Austin versus McMahon or something, and then like pitch the tagline as like, the break down the story of this and that. Like that, I think could draw people in more than just like WWE Superstar Profiles, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah, I'd say like I would that potentially be correct, but my argument would be they have tried making all those documentaries and their fan base never got any bigger. So they have done the Austin McMahon story, they have done the Montreal Screwjob, they've done every single one you could probably think of, which is like a storyline scandal based thing, and it doesn't work. So now they're going to try this instead and see if this works, and it may not, but it's easier to make than that stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah, and they're gonna do exactly what you're saying. It's gonna be WWE Raw Classics, Episode 1, Attitude Era, and it's gonna be, oh my god, check out the same 20 clips that we show you every couple of years about the Attitude Era. And it's fine, it always gets viewers. And believe it or not, especially as you start to interact with younger fans, there's always people who are like, can you believe that they did this? And that's actually
there's always going to be one person that's seen those clips for the first time.
Yeah,
I just don't think that, like, I can't picture the screen jumping out at me with these titles the way that, like, I know when I scroll Netflix, if something doesn't catch my attention from the thumbnail and the name, I might never see that thing. And it might even be like perfect for me, but it might just be like, you called it like, I don't know, they called a series like Royal. And I'm like, the name doesn't do anything for me. Tell me what it is with the thumbnail. And it'll be a thumbnail of like generic, like hot woman just like looking off to the side. And it's like, that doesn't tell me anything about it. Skip, I scroll through a lot like that. And I'm sure
the TikTok brain rot that we all have developed is disgusting. Which is basically what you've just described there.
Yeah,
where you're
too many options, too fat. Like, just move on and pitch it to me. Like, give me. And there are things that work like that. Like, I saw, and it's funny enough that you mentioned TikTok, because it's like, I saw a quick, like, 2 seconds worth of an advertisement for this Carry On movie. And within the first 2 seconds of Jason Bateman talking to Taron Egerton, I was just like, all right, let me watch the rest of this video. And it was maybe a minute long little preview. I'm like, that seems like an interesting movie. I'm going to check out Carry On at some point. And I don't really know much about it. I know it's like a terrorism thing in like an airport or whatever, but I'm like, I don't need to know more about it. You hooked me with that first minute. And there was another one, Black Doves, which within 10 seconds of watching a TikTok video of a scene from that, I'm like, okay, this seems like it could be kind of interesting too. And then there's plenty other things that are on Netflix, and it'll just be like, I don't know, pick a random ass word and just go, Tuesday evenings or something. And then you're not telling me what's on this. I got too much other shit to do. Moving on. So I could see this being like, if you just have like WWE top 10, if you're not a WWE fan, I don't see any reason why you would stop on it. You'd have to have like a really dynamic picture. And we know that the pictures change on Netflix too. Like if you log in on different people's accounts, you see different thumbnails. So they're going to pick the thing that the algorithm tells them is probably the thing that'll be most attractive to you. But holy shit, is that wrong for me a lot of the time. And they're never going to release the information about this. We're never going to know numbers. Netflix doesn't say how many people click on different things, and that's also going to be very interesting as far as ratings are concerned, because nobody's ever going to be able to know what the raw ratings are. But I know for my perspective, these 5 shows, I don't think I'm going to watch a single moment of any 5 of them. Like, not even to check them out once to see if they're good. Unless somebody specifically tells me, like, if one of you guys were to be like, oh, I checked out the Legends Profiles thing on Mr. Perfect and it was really good, then I might check it out. And I don't think anybody else that I'm aware of that's more casual is going to be interested in this, but by all means, like, I hope for their success that I'm wrong, at least in the sense that I want WWE to stick around and all, but I also kind of hope that I'm right and that they go, fuck, we have to put more effort into this. I want effort, and I want effort to be rewarded. And yeah, we'll see if we get that heading into 2025. I don't think that'll be the case, but who knows? We know one thing we're going to get with Netflix coming up soon. The Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley match is going to be Last Woman Standing.
Yep.
So Rhea Ripley should certainly win that belt, as we've been talking about.
That's super cool. I think they deserve some kind of big finale. There's actually, I went through an interview with Sami Zayn, I think it was with the Battleground podcast, where he basically said, he's like, not divulging too much here, but I know for a fact that Roman and Solo and Punk and Rollins were at least talked about going to Mania. So the fact that they're happening now tells you what they're trying to do for this Netflix show. And I think the same thing with the Morgan and Ripley thing, where it's like, this could have happened a month ago, at least maybe a month and a half. And the Netflix show seems loaded. It feels like a pay-per-view, And obviously not I think it's kind of misleading to do this because not every episode of Raw is going to be like this.
Yeah.
But
that's what they do for every show, though. I mean, the first Superstars we always talk about was like Undertaker against Matt Hardy or something, and it's like, Undertaker ain't working this show, come on. Yeah. The first of everything is going to be bigger, and by week 5 at the very latest, I would assume they're going to go back to normal episodes of Raw. Maybe even week 2. But I could see them trying to make week 2 semi-big too, at least putting like an Intercontinental title match on there and like, maybe a couple other things, but it's still...
as we know from Sean Ross Sapp, the WWE Superstars don't know what to expect from Raw on Netflix in terms of the length of the program. It's being kept very fluid, which to me means probably 2.5 hours most weeks, but they're leaving the door open in case they want to go 3 hours on a random week.
See, I'm kind of thinking that they're going to go with the 3-hour idea from the start, and they're just not relaying this information well.
But like, to me, that's so silly. Just tell the people who work for your company what they're in for. You don't have to tell us. Fine, sure, whatever. But tell the people who work for your company.
Oh, employees are nothing anymore. You know that. Everybody who is not at the very top of everything in money, they do not matter to the people with money across the board. Everybody's going to learn that real fucking hard in 2025. Hashtag not my lesson to learn, but I think that they're just like, the worker monkeys don't need to know. They're going to go there and they're going to do it and shut up and do your job. And I can see a lot of this being as well that they are like more on the fluid side where they don't have to stick to a certain amount because they're going to have commercial breaks. We know that. But it's certainly not going to work the same way. And if they want it to be like, okay, you have to specifically have the same exact pattern as what a TV show would on normal broadcast television, then that's going to be kind of hard for them to do on their platform. But I think that they're more going to be like, hey, if we want this episode to be 2 hours and 48 minutes, it's 2 hours and 48. If we want it to be 2 hours and 53, it'll be 2:53. If it's 3:05, we'll just keep the cameras rolling a little bit longer. I would love for it to be a 2-hour show. It's so much easier to digest, especially if SmackDown's going to be 3.
Yeah, SmackDown being 3 for the first time really rubs me the wrong way, but especially as we know, like, it doesn't feel like they're going to retain Roman. Maybe I'm wrong, but Roman is all over this Netflix advertising. It doesn't feel like they're retaining Roman. We know, based on everything we've seen so far, that they're likely not retaining Cody. What are you going to have for 3 hours that's going to be able to keep, the intrigue? Because at least, you could say, hey, you got to wait 3 hours, but, Roman's here, Cody's here, something like that. I mean, who do we really think that they're going to put over on SmackDown?
I mean, that transfer window thing's still not clarified at all.
Because it speaks to the fluidity of all of it.
But at the end of the day, this is for Master Booker Triple H to figure out.
Yeah.
Like, it's time for him. This is now the time, because WWE has been on the crest of a wave for a good number of years now. And they always say about, like, a new booker has, like, usually 4 to 5 good years before things start to fall apart. Potentially look at AEW, potentially as a sign of these sort of things. But essentially, this is his challenge. He's had it. I don't want to. This is going to sound harsh, and maybe it's going to be harsher than it actually meant to be. But it's quite easy so far. The Bloodline and a few other like top stars getting hot at the same time has meant that he's kind of been able to. I wouldn't necessarily say coast, but WWE is over right now. So now you're entering a period where if you are going to have 2 shows that are 3 hours long, and you've got to try and make them interesting and must-see and get the viewership going, then that's your job as a booker to figure out how you're going to do it, who you're going to push, who you're going to get over, who are you going to like feature heavily, who's going to be the stars of each brand. Like, at the end of the day, it's like that's his job to figure out. If he can't figure it out, then both shows are going to suffer because of it, and they're going to be boring and they'll be stale, and WWE will probably its momentum will start to slow down. I mean, it will start to slow down inevitably anyway, because nothing stays as hot as they are right now forever. But yeah, it's his job to try and like keep it as buoyant as he possibly can with the cards he has to his chest. And if not, then he has to find other people that can do that job as well. So yeah, that's just the situation. It's now time for Triple H to put his working boots on.
And we've got the lineup for these different shows is like kind of lost on me at this point, because like I said before, I haven't really been paying too much attention to anything. So maybe they've announced some extra things here and there, but I'll be watching SmackDown tonight, and that'll be their opportunity to like actually fill me in on something without me having known that a million times ahead of time. But they're already like kind of dropping the ball on that front too, because I'm going to double check again to see if it's changed, but I checked an hour ago and it was, okay, so it's not changed at all. WWE.com still doesn't have anything listed now for SmackDown on their news page. And that's
I think they're just going with, hey,
just watch it, guys, please.
It's the last SmackDown. It's the last 2 hour SmackDown. It's the last SmackDown of the year. Actually, because I'm scrolling and I just caught my eye, I will just read this tweet from WrestleVotes verbatim. Tonight marks the final 2 hour SmackDown for the foreseeable future. Scheduled for the show is a 6-woman tag match. Bianca, Naomi, and Bayley against Nia Jax, Tiffany, and Candice, and Chelsea's U.S. title celebration is also penciled in to take place.
So it's kind of a you don't really need to see it show.
Okay, yes, but you can't look at everything like that, because eventually at some point it does just become don't watch any of it, see Callum. Like, because how many times can we look at it and go, all right, well, this doesn't mean anything, before it's just like, well, what are we doing here? Like, it's kind of getting to that point, don't you think?
All the more reason that I'm so happy that I haven't been watching. Yeah, it's hey, it's must-see TV needs to be must-see. And when they end up being like, this is something that's going to be a lot of filler content, if that's their big preview for what the show is, I'm gonna check to see what there's like 6 hours ago. Fightful had put up a thing that just says Final SmackDown of 2024. Wrestling Headlines has seemingly no information either. It's just Cody's gonna be there. Jey Uso versus Chad Gable in a dark match. Bianca Belair, Kairi Sane, and Dakota Kai against Pure Fusion Collective is scheduled.
Probably the dark match as well.
Another dark. So they've only announced the dark matches. That makes no sense.
Well, because the dark matches come from the local announcements. Hey, come to SmackDown in Tampa. You will see, Cody Rhodes face Ludwig Kaiser for the WWE Championship. I don't know why that was my go-to. But
and maybe we should be checking Speed and Main Event where they announce things like Zelina Vega injured and all. Like, that's it's like this doesn't look like it's anything, and that gives me more pause to just be like, maybe I shouldn't bother watching SmackDown tonight. I should keep the ball rolling and just be okay with not watching it. And then, once we get to Netflix, I have to, obviously, but WWE, you're not selling me on this stuff, guys. You gotta, if this is my job and I don't want to do it, imagine the people that don't have to watch it. They're the ones that are like, I guess I'm not going to watch it for weeks and weeks. I guess we'll see how that all plays out, though. But we do have 2 more hot tags here before we get into World's End. This one's a pretty quick and easy one. Congratulations to 2 different couples from NXT. Maxxine Dupri and Anthony Luke are now engaged, and so are Arianna Grace and Channing Stacks Lorenzo. Congrats
Hell
to
yeah.
couples.
Love. Am I right? Like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, congratulations to the NXT Love Island.
Yeah,
It's basically an episode of Love Island there. So
I don't
it's worked out there as well. So.
if I messaged this to Tony or someone else, but I basically said, I'm going to buy a Performance Center t-shirt and just find the love of my life in 2025. Because that's, apparently, they're all just very cozy over there, and they seem to be happy.
it's like college dorms. Everybody just hooks up, and that works out very well for them. They're all pretty much essentially all attractive people that are physically fit and in the same tax bracket, and it's a pressure cooker for something that makes perfect sense like that. So that's awesome for them. It's great that when you see like those kind of things, and it just separates you from like the performers and all, and it's like, okay, well, the real people element of that, I've never met any of these, but for them to find that and to be like, hey, you see when Arianna Grace and Stacks are like kind of flirty and people are reporting about that on social media, then there's creepy people that like hyper fixate on this and end up being like, I noticed that somebody unfollowed somebody and they were following them before and all that. It's like, whoa, okay, relax a little bit. But you go from that to like, they're engaged. Awesome. You're gonna have a baby Morella at one point, maybe. I don't know. Channing Stacks Morella. We'll get in the future. So congrats to those happy couples. And, the differences between that and maybe some other people, I haven't come across if there's anybody else that had gotten engaged or anything. So if I'm forgetting somebody or some baby announcements or anything, then congrats to them too. And I just haven't seen it. Congrats to WWE for finally cutting ties with Susan G. Komen.
Now, how did this happen? I know I've been hearing about this forever, but
saw some kind of a report about that being like Endeavor decided to just cut ties with them.
Well, I mean, it seems like they are trying to clear out some toxicity, but sometimes the call comes from within the house.
I'm not seeing too much more information about this because everything I just like when I'm Googling things, I'm just coming across other Susan G. Komen things, but they did cut like the tribute to the troops and stuff. So we are seeing things that are like, they're taking these, what would you call them, like foundational elements of like that and getting rid of it.
Well, the reason why I'm at least okay with Tribute to the Troops is that show went from being like, hey, we're visiting the troops on site and all this, and then it became, oh, hey, this week it's basically just all troops in the crowd and it's just a regular episode. Pay no attention. So if you're going to do it like that, don't do it at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all right with that.
I mean, I don't really give too much credit to WWE for, like breaking ties with a corporation that most people have understood has been like corrupt for ages and ages and ages. It's like, the reasons for them doing it aren't positive, or they aren't altruistic. It's just a case of, this probably isn't a good look for us. Let's move away from it now. So not ready to go like, oh great, they've decided to not be part of the evil corporation because they themselves are pretty much an evil corporation. So don't really want to put too much credit in their bank for that.
Did they do the Warrior Award this year?
I can't remember.
I don't.
I know they went. I know they went to Saudi Arabia twice, so they're still that sort of thing. So,
maybe that's where the trophy went.
So the lineup for Hall of Fame this year was Paul Heyman, Bull Nakano, Thunderbolt Patterson, Leah Maivia, U.S. Express, and Muhammad Ali.
So yeah, they didn't do it.
Yeah. I guess we're not going to see that anymore. Which, I mean, that wasn't what it was supposed to be anyway. And, But yeah, if that's this report from Meltzer about cutting Susan G. Komen is true, which if that's like, all the bad stuff that comes out about them, if that's all true, then yeah, fuck them. Good. Get away from that stuff. Those are the hot takes I've got. You guys ready to do the predictions? Not the post show of the World's End stuff?
Yeah, let's start with predictions, I think, yeah.
So, at least as far as I'm aware, there are the same matches that were heading into the past couple of nights and stuff that I don't think they've announced anything else on for the pre-show or anything. Let me double check just to be sure. So yeah, it seems like it's the same 8 matches or so. The easiest way to start off, I guess, is to lump 3 of them together already with the Continental Classic, because we know the 2 semifinals matches, which will obviously lead to the finals. Kazuchika Okada against Ricochet, Will Ospreay against Kyle Fletcher, and the winner of those 2 matches against each other. I am going to stick to the same thing that I have said from the very beginning, and so far I've been right about it. I said that it was going to be these 4, and I think it's going to play out exactly the way that I had said before. I think Okada beats Ricochet. Ricochet continues to spiral down with this heel turn that is really just laughably bad in some ways. Kyle Fletcher loses to Will Ospreay. Fletcher had a really good run on this. He had the overall most amount of points, if I remember correctly. I think he had 12, and I think nobody else got to that point. And Fletcher had beaten Ospreay before, so that's all right, now we're 1-1. And then you got Okada and Ospreay in the finals, and then either Ricochet and or Fletcher comes out, screws over Will Ospreay. Okada retains the title, wins the championship, tournament, concept, do the whole thing that they advertised from the very beginning. Ospreay looks like, man, you would have had that belt if it wouldn't have been for insert heel. And that's how I think that this all is going to play out.
So that fundamentally can't happen because of the stipulations of the Continental Classic being that if anybody comes in to interfere, if anybody interferes in the match, then they're fired. So they won't risk doing that in the final. So, but I know it's these sort of things can just come and go as plays, but I think that they at least stick to it fairly rigidly when it comes to the Continental Championship matches.
What if they did something instead where it's Ospreay beats Fletcher, and then after the match, they jump Ospreay, and he walks into the match with Okada basically
Well,
on
they
one
could do
leg
that.
or something. Like
Yeah,
something will happen
I'm not saying
Okada
there's-
will retain by like, okay, if it would have been Ospreay at 100%, he would have beaten Okada, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying the result you're saying is correct. I'm just saying the method in which you propose
The
that would
actual
happen.
stipulation thing, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I think the Continental Classic went pretty well this year. I enjoyed the things. I'm like super into the Ricochet heel turn. I think it's been going very well. It's one of the best things that AEW have done in the last few months. I think that the crowd is super anti him. They're like throwing toilet paper into the ring and all this other stuff. So I think that he's working out really well in the role, and I think he will probably end up with him joining the Hurt Syndicate at some point. Him versus Okada should be an interesting match because they are both technically heels at this point now. I mean, Ricochet still hasn't officially crossed that line, but it'll be interesting to see what the kind of crowd reaction. I assume the crowd will be behind Okada because just how much they detest Ricochet right now. And I assume Okada would get the victory there. And Ospreay versus Fletcher. Again, it's an interesting one because of how Fletcher beat Ospreay last time. But I think that you probably go with Ospreay getting the victory, as you say, and going 1-1. I mean, the long-term thing for me, or the thing that's just in my mind about it, is what route do you take to get to what I think is the obvious match coming out of all this stuff, which is at the Grand Slam show in Australia, Will Ospreay versus Carl Fletcher 3. Or technically 4, if you count their match at Dynamite, but in this current iteration of the feud, they're the rubber match. So that can either be Ospreay is the champion and defends it against Carl Fletcher at Grand Slam, or Okada wins, is still the champion, and then their match has just got no title attached to it. I think in order to extend it out to, because that show doesn't happen till like February, March time, I believe. So in order to extend that out and do some stuff in the meantime, I think you probably should have Ospreay win the Continental Championship, because you can then have Okada have a bit of a reset moment where he's lost his title, he doesn't really have the same aura around him anymore, so it's time where you need to start rebuilding him back up through whatever means you wish to do so. But I think separating him from that title and then trying to reset him is probably the best way. So I'm going to say that Ospreay wins the Continental Classic and becomes the Continental Champion as a result.
I think there's a chance for anyone other than Ricochet to take this whole thing. Kyle Fletcher's done very well for himself, and the only thing making me feel like he won't win is the fact that it's an easy way to get Will to get his win back against Kyle. But my biggest thing coming out of all of this is Fightful has reported Omega's going to be at the show. Do you have him here where Okada's the person who took him out? He's got the built-in issues with Will, and he can have something with Fletcher because Fletcher is with Callis? Or is this just its own thing and then we see Omega go right for the top of the top? I'm going to say that I think it'll come down to Will and Okada, and I would rather Will win and try to set a new pace with this championship that we still don't really have a good vibe for. Because Kingston was a fine champ. Okada's been fun because Okada with the belt is always good, but he hasn't done anything specifically to enhance this particular title other than he's Okada, so name value alone. I'm ready to see it move on, so I'm going to say that the ending I want is Will wins the championship, and I'll guess set something up for Okada v. Kenny, probably.
I'm thinking Okada v. Kenny with the title at Grand Slam. Ospreay, Fletcher, no title, just rubber match. Because Grand Slam's the first pay-per-view of the year, right? It's Fight for the Fallen is going to be just a special TV show.
That
and then
we know of, unless they throw in some
'Cause it's February
bullshit.
8th or
I mean, technically,
something?
Wrestle Dynasty is the first show of the.
Yeah,
And it's
it.
first pure AEW show. I mean, because that's almost more of a New Japan show.
Yeah, that's the one before Revolution. Yeah, so it's February 15th.
So that also means I am very clearly just going. Mariah May retains her women's world title over Thunder Rosa in that Tijuana street fight. We're getting Mariah May versus Toni Storm. I can't imagine Thunder Rosa's going to win that title.
Why are they having a street fight? Why do they hate each other? What? Look, I know it's semantics and why get bogged down, but the visceralness which she challenged her to this fight, I don't remember them having issues like that. I mean, they're ramping it up real quick with the whole "I'm gonna beat you in front of your dad and I'm gonna make him cry," but why is it a street fight? Either way, I hope it's a fun match.
I mean,
Mariah May wins.
I think there's two reasons. One, obviously, the whole character of Mariah May is built around her being just this pretty cold-hearted bitch-like character, and she cut ties with Mina Shirakawa, and she basically just gets to the heart of the people that she fights in terms of just saying that that she basically has no competition around her, and she should use any advantage to make sure that remains the case. But I mean, the main reason why it's a Tier 1 street fight is that when AEW do women's plunder matches, it's usually the best matches that the women have on the show. Every single great AEW women's match, look, the vast majority of them, at least a good 75% of the best ever women's matches in AEW's history have been either street fights or hardcore matches or something of that ilk. So they're imagining they'll probably hit gold with this. I mean, Thunder Rosa had a great street fight a couple of months ago against Deonna Purrazzo. So this is the element where the AEW women thrive in these types of matches. So I imagine this will make it a better match than if it would have just been a straight one-on-one.
Plus, it just sounds more interesting. If you say it's Thunder Rosa versus Mariah May in a regular match, who cares? Oh, Tijuana street fight? Maybe I'll see them beat the crap out of each other. So now you're more interested by default.
See, but I'll be honest. The fact that you would say that, I know your perspective is skewed, but the fact that you would say that is probably bad, because you should look at two people like Mariah and Thunder and go, anything they do should be pretty good. So yeah, I'm excited to see them in a regular match. But you're right. I understand that no matter what you do, the street fight element ramps it up. I just wanted to bring it up because it was just hey, and by the way, fuck you, street fight. Okay.
It's going to be a one and done thing anyway. Mariah will retain. We know that the path is to Toni Storm at Grand Slam.
Do we think we're just getting straight to Mariah and Toni, or they could detour? Because wasn't there something between Thunder and Toni Storm where Thunder didn't want to drop the title to her?
I imagine they'll have a match against each other. That'll probably be either a number of contenders, or Toni will beat Thunder on the path to facing Mariah May at Grand Slam. And I imagine Mariah will defend the title between now and then against someone else. But the match where she'll lose the title will be at Grand Slam against Toni Storm, with the whole rookie character going on.
And do we think that she'll figure out who she is between now and then?
No, I think she'll still think that she's the rookie Toni Storm, and think that it's so amazing that she's won the title at her first attempt.
For the first time.
Yeah, for the first time at her first attempt. And this will just continue for a little while going forward. But yeah, that involves Mariah May beating Thunder Rosa in this match. So
not only do I think that belt's going to stay exactly where it is, I also think Konosuke Takeshita is going to retain the AEW International Championship over Powerhouse Hobbs.
You better.
I mean, that is far more predictable, just based on what we know is coming up for Takeshita later on, which is at Wrestle Kingdom. He's having for now, it's a match for the Never Openweight Championship against Shingo Takagi. If he's still the AEW International Champion, it becomes a title versus title match. And then he's also at Wrestle Dynasty, then going to be, if he wins that match, be defending the Never Openweight Championship against Tomohiro Ishii. So there's a lot that Takeshita's got going forward, and I think he needs to beat Hobbs at the start of it to get going. So
do we think he just wins that belt as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would too. He's fucking great. He should just win everything.
I'm past the give everybody multiple belts stage that it's been happening the past 3 years, but doesn't seem like that's going to stop anytime soon.
Well, at least it's like multiple belts across multiple promotions.
Yeah, like
Not
these
all
are.
within the
It's
same
not
company.
like.
True.
Yeah, it's not like here's 5 WWE titles, Roman.
Yeah, or here's like your tag team champion and the world champion, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's going to retain the international championship here, and probably leave some wiggle room for a rematch down the road. And then you have, and then go to Japan. He'll win a title there as well, and then he'll be jumping between both promotions for a little while. I assume he'll probably, as I say, this is long in the future. I imagine there's a good chance he'll probably be in the G1 Climax again next year. So they want to keep him as a figure available for them for New Japan. So he should probably get the victory here to help cement that still.
Long in the future, and who knows if we're still doing this next year, but I'm going to say by this time next year, Takeshita is going to be in or around the world title.
For AEW or New Japan?
For AEW, yeah.
He realistically should be built up to that point, yeah. Whether or not they actually like do it is up in the air, but he should be. What else we got? We got Mercedes Moné against Chris Statlander for the AEW TBS Championship. I think this could go. Let's put it this way: it could go one of two ways. Either Mercedes retains or she doesn't. But at the same time,
you don't say.
I think that this could be booked with two things in mind, which really, if you know that, then that is the real hinge-pin of the whole thing. Either Mercedes is dropping this belt because Camille comes out, screws her over, and that's a way to not have Camille beat her for the title, and to just like do that story helps Mercedes like move on, and she could be fighting Toni Storm for the world title in the next few months or whatever. Or Tony Khan was just like, I liked that match that they had. Let's just hit the rewind button, do that again. It's easy. And then Mercedes just retains again.
So I live in a world where all things can be true. And I think that there's definitely an element of that that's just like, that's the longest women's match we've had, and one of the best Mercedes has had in a while. And I think it's just like, fuck it, run it back. You don't need too much build there. It's same thing like running back Kyle and Will. Run it back. It was great. Do it again. I also think that there's a reality of maybe Mercedes looks at Chris and is like, hey, you're great. I'll put you over so you can have a solid babyface run. And now I will go chase after the world championship. So I think there's a good chance all things can be true and Mercedes loses here. In fact, I'll say that's my prediction. Because the only other thing I see is, does she get new heavies? Like, do the Renegade twins come in and are they her heavies now? I don't know.
I think that Mercedes, in terms of her in-ring, has hit a bit of like a hot streak in the last month or so, because she had that, the great match that she had against Chris Statlander at Full Gear, followed by the match that she had at Strong Style Evolved against Husky. I think that she's started to come into her own a little bit in terms of the in-ring stuff is really clicking at the moment. So putting her in another match with Chris Statlander makes a lot of sense. I think that the whole story surrounding, the whole backstory surrounding is Chris Statlander looking to get back together with Willow Nightingale as a tag team. Like, kind of Willow being a bit confused about all that. We know that Willow's going to be having the match at Wrestle Dynasty for that International Cup. So I think that, in my mind, the vision is still very much Willow versus Mercedes at a show. I don't know whether it'd be a Grand Slam.
Could be Revolution.
Revolution could be one of those big shows. I think that's the match where we see Willow win the TBS title back. So, and I think at that point that her and Chris Statlander will be back on the same page. I think in order for that to happen, there probably, as Rob says, needs to have some kind of Mercedes having seconds behind her, or at least one other person behind her, in order to create a 2-on-1 situation that Willow and Chris have to bury their past animosity and then get back on the same page. So whether that is like the Renegade Twins are now part of Mercedes Act, or there's another person they're bringing in, it does feel like the sort of occasion where they might have someone up their sleeves that they might decide, okay, this person's here now, and I have no idea who that might be. Could be Megan Bain, someone of that ilk, if she's available. And she was signed back to AEW.
Trade-up. Yeah. It'd be a fun trade-up.
But yeah, so there's room to go with. I think that it's going to be Mercedes retaining here, but it'll be some kind of evolution that means that leads us to close to the path of Willow winning the title from Mercedes and bringing.
I'd also go.
So we had a little bit of an issue there where the intro popped back up and we missed a little bit of that. I don't know how much we missed. OBS kind of crapped out. Yeah. OBS like kind of flipped out on me. So okay. we did miss a little bit of that there. I don't think we missed a whole lot though. So maybe reiterate a little bit what you had just said a second ago, Callum.
Okay. Where do you want to start from, Joe? Just go from.
I have no idea where this had happened.
I might just go from the start point and just abbreviate it, so you can just cut it. So after Rob says his bits on the match, I'll just go into my.
I'm not even going to edit it.
Oh, okay.
Right. I'm just things happen, everybody. You know.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think that the long-term gain is that you're going towards Willow and Mercedes at either Grand Slam, Revolution, some show like that. And so in order for that to happen, Mercedes needs to retain the title here, and there needs to be some kind of either faction or at least one other person that comes behind her as a means of like forming either a tag team or a unit that Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale have to work together to overcome. That's the Renegade Twins as a duo act, whether that's Megan Bain, whether that's a group of other people that they have up their sleeve that they want to give some more opportunity to. Then I think that will be I think that will be the route. So yeah, Mercedes will retain, hopefully be as good a match, if better than last time around. And yeah, that's where I think right now. So Mercedes retains.
And I'd also like to change my prediction. I'd completely mentally forgotten that they've already booked Mercedes.
Yeah, versus Mina
Shirakawa for Wrestle Dynasty. So yeah, obviously Mercedes is winning here. She might even win that Rev Pro title.
Yeah, admittedly, that match doesn't have any like specific bearing on this because the TBS title's not on the line in that match either way. So
isn't it belt versus belt?
It's strong title.
The other, but yeah, it's
a strong championship against.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily
she can lose
that but it's unlikely that she'll lose based on that because then she'll have 3 titles that she can parade around, which I think is probably
kind of excessive.
Yeah.
If I have to make a true I'll pick this direction. I'll say that Mercedes probably does retain, and they probably just decided that they wanted to see another rematch for the sake of it, because that's easy to book, and it's like you don't have to really do anything. But I'm more thinking that there's a chance that Mercedes drops the belt now than I did when it was Statlander the first time. So if it does happen, and maybe it's like from something that happens with Camille, or maybe it's not, then it wouldn't be the biggest shock for me. But I could also just very easily be like, okay, well, they didn't plan that at all, MJF against Adam Cole is for the Dynamite Diamond ring. And this also could go either way, I think, because I could see a scenario where, look, Adam Cole could have been the guy that beat MJF for the world title. Tons of different things got in the way, forced that not to be the case. And maybe this is their like consolation prize in some ways of like, well, now you could beat him for something and he could flip out and it could be a whole big thing. MJF has held this Dynamite Diamond ring since its inception. It really doesn't do anything anymore. It serves no real purpose. So for it to be on the line in this, either it's just a matter of MJF retains and it's again like, you know, Adam Cole maybe has like the Undisputed Kingdom turns on him, maybe Kyle O'Reilly comes out, maybe Roderick Strong comes out, blah, blah, blah. Or it could just be like, okay, put the Dynamite Diamond ring on the line, Adam Cole beats MJF is mad, and that could be maybe even the end of their feud. Or maybe it just continues and they have another match for it or something. I'm not invested in this anymore. I've not been liking this feud. So if it ends up being MJF beats Adam Cole, I hope that that's just the end of it. And if it's Adam Cole beats MJF, then I kind of hope that the Dynamite Diamond ring never comes back.
Mike Bennett, Mike Bennett and Matt Taven are ringside for this, and there's no reason to announce that they're going to be watching Adam Cole's back unless they're going to stab Adam Cole in the back. So that's about where I'm at with this. And I'm going to guess this eventually leads to MJF and Kingdom against
Roddy, Kyle, and yeah.
Yeah. So that's about where I'm at with this. And I wish I cared. You know I love Adam Cole. Guys, I wish I cared about this. I don't. And it's not even because what they've done to the build-up hasn't been great. It's just this is the last remnants of a feud that began like in the middle of last year, and too much has happened since then to feel like any of this makes sense outside of the fact that you just want to wrap up the story finally. And they also did a lot of weird twists and turns where suddenly, like, you know, Roddy made sense because he was all the Adam. That made sense. Kyle getting thrown in there and being super mad about it was a bit weird. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes, but I'm guess Max retains the diamond ring and Adam Cole loses, leading to an eventual trios setup because maybe that division is going to get a boost in the arm on Wednesday. You know, like I'm fully expecting that much at least.
So yeah, you couldn't really give me. You'd have to pay me a lot to really care about this match in particular. I just, as I say, I've hated everything that they've done on TV since Cole's return. I think that all the stuff that MJF was doing actually prior to the resumption of this Cole feud was actually doing pretty well with the whole Ospreay and then Daniel Garcia, and it looked like, okay, this is, you know, he's still being old school Max, which is a bit of a retread, but at least it's new people, there's more interesting stories, and then this came back and it's just been terrible ever since. And he hasn't even been around because of the whole Happy Gilmore stuff as well. So it's just been really bad promos, bad matches, just everything just hasn't been good associated with this. So I'm not looking forward to the match taking place here. Maybe, as I say, maybe they'll switch it on, maybe because they've worked together so many times beforehand that they'll put something more interesting together. But Rob is probably right in saying that the only reason why they would announce that the Kingdom is going to be at ringside is because they're going to do something. It seems also like just the odd dynamic of the babyface having the two people being ringside for them. But then again, this just falls into the whole thing of the match where like the alignments have switched over and over again just through circumstances. I presume that had all things gone as expected or as intended, then this would have been the match at World's End last year instead of this year for the World Championship, which in a way is good because it meant that, because if that happened, then we wouldn't have gotten Swerve winning the title probably. So it might have been a blessing in disguise that way. But I think that the likelihood is that MJF wins, and then this will lead to the reforming of the, whatever you want to call that, the remnants of the Undisputed Era for another pretty underwhelming reunion tour for these guys.
I wonder what they're going to call them. Then maybe it's just the Undisputed Trio or something.
I think they've got Paragon in the back pocket from when they were supposed to do this. What are we looking at? 3 years ago, when Kyle came in the first time before everybody got hurt the first time.
Man, that's such a boring name, though. I hope they don't go with that. I hate the whole like Pinnacle, Paragon, Zenith. Like,
well, I imagine it will be something like that because like MJF will probably get this new crew together with those two, and they'll form something which will have like Devil as their faction name. I don't know what it would be. Something like, I don't know what do you call it, like Devil worshippers or something along those lines. Just because it's like their act will be like that Max is the devil and they're the ones supporting him, and then you can have Paragon or some sort of angel related thing as the opposite one, and it can be just like a, you know, I mean, as I say, I'm not looking forward to it because that sounds shit, but then again, that's what I think they'll do because these guys just do really shit storylines together. So
the Devil's Kingdom against the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, I just want both to move on and do something different with other people.
Well, that's what I was going to say. My blind optimism says maybe we do this so we can finally reset these guys. Because I disagree with Callum in the sense that I haven't liked everything Max has done. I thought the American title was super cheesy. I was super excited to see him as a babyface. And then they just totally said, nah, fuck that. He's going to be regular old Max. And I'm ready to see them do something else. So, like, if you ask me, the most exciting thing about this to me could be maybe Undisputed Era reunion, and maybe as a one-off we get Cole, Strong, and O'Reilly against FTR and Cope. That's, like, not even thinking about the Kingdom Max stuff, but just that, to me, is what I'm looking forward to. Just do some fun trios matches again.
Well, it's not a trios match, but it's a four-way match, the final match on this card for the AEW World Championship. Jon Moxley is defending against Orange Cassidy, Hangman Adam Page, and Switchblade Jay White, a.k.a. Jon Moxley is beating Orange Cassidy, Hangman Adam Page, and Switchblade Jay White. There's no way Moxley drops that belt to anybody but Darby Allin. So it's just a matter of who takes the pin in this one and why, and I think it's going to be Jay White getting pinned through something that Adam Page does. Maybe he like hits the buckshot lariat on White after like arguing with him or something and walks out, or maybe he unintentionally hits White with a chair or something. I don't think Page is getting pinned, and I don't think Cassidy's there to take the pin again. So that's why I'm leaning towards Jay White's gonna lose here.
I very much think that Cassidy's here to take the pin again.
Yeah, why wouldn't he?
Yeah, because I think the other guys are the more protected ones out of those ones, and Cassidy is just, you know, he's an overact, and he's already lost to Moxley, so there's no real harm in him getting pinned again. I think that, like, it's not necessarily, I don't think it's 100% certain that Moxley, even though I think this is the route that Moxley will end up losing it to Darby Allin, I think there's a handful of people that he can end up losing the title to. And one of those people in this match in the form of Hangman Page, but I don't think this Hangman Page in this current iterational mindset where he's still like clearly on the heel leaning side of things, very much like a very conflicted soul. I don't think at this stage of his character development he can beat Moxley for the title, but maybe later on, if he does seem like more aligned to the good side later on, that can be when he wins the title from Moxley. Darby's another choice. Kenny Omega, when he comes back, is another choice. There's other people along the lines, but I don't think either Cassidy or Jay White has a chance. And that'll be one. Moxley will end up pinning one of them to retain the title. It's 4-way, so the rest of the Death Riders can get involved. I imagine they will. I imagine it'll become some kind of like smozzy, loads of people all over the place get involved. They may take an approach of like approaching it early on as like a 3-on-1 thing before it descends into more of the traditional 4-way. But yeah, Moxley will manage to survive, retain the championship, and carry on into the new year.
So, one of the things we haven't talked about yet that we always seem to do is what are they going to add to the show? And something I can very much see them adding to this show is a post-match, like a bunch of craziness after the bell, because we got Christian, and Christian played heavily into the ending of the last pay-per-view. We've got Darby, who, by the way, I do think Darby will be in action. I think it'll end up being an 8-man tag of Darby, Garcia, Briscoe, and Commander against Mortos, Claudio, Benjamin, and the other name from the tournament that I'm forgetting. I'm drawing a blank on right now, but I think that 8-man will be part of the show. Oh, Brody King. I think that 8-man will be part of the show. Yeah, I can imagine a lot of craziness going down because this is the end of the year for the company. And by the time they restart, you're on Max. You're doing a lot of crazy things for Fight for the Fallen. So there's a lot to look forward to here if they decide to do a post-credits. Still, I think Moxley wins. If I had to guess, and this is just me being, fantasy booking, but I would say Darby at Revolution because that's 5 years since Mox first won the championship, and that's 5 years since Sting and Darby teamed up. And I think that there's a little bit of poetic, the nature of that can be a bit poetic, but we'll see.
Okay, everyone. Well, that means we are done for this episode, and we will be seeing you next time around with the post-show for the pay-per-view point side of the World's End coverage from tomorrow. I'll have that up on smarkmomo.com. I'll have that up on EWN as well. And, any of the other kind of topics that happen over these next few days or so, we'll roll that into the hot tags for next week. Still haven't quite figured out exactly what the plan is for next week because we're not going to record on like New Year's Eve or, New Year's Day particularly. So we're probably going to do just like one episode and, kind of combine things. But we have plenty different things up in the air about maybe doing that Mount Rushmore idea of recapping the Mount Rushmore of WWE and AEW for 2024. We got the one to watch that we can do. We've got the heel and face turn prediction things. We've got a Darkcast that we can try to take care of as well. We've got the Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty predictions and stuff. So I think we're probably leaning towards having just like a one-shot combo episode on like the hot tags and stuff, but we'll see. You'll be able to find out what happens when, if I post something ahead of time on Discord or whatever, then you'll get that message ahead of time. If not, then it'll just pop up on the feed and you'll see what we end up doing. But stay tuned for at least the post show for that. And obviously check out everything that you can find all over the place in the normal spectrum. Go to amangotree.com. You'll find links to everything. So follow those accounts. Make sure you're checking what I'm up to at Tony Mango. And also follow what Rob and Callum are up to.
Yep, follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. Thank you for all your support throughout the year. Thank you to these guys for being great friends and people who are fun to do this with. And we'll catch you guys in the next year.
Yep, you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Wigmeister14. Check out the Power Ranking, markoutmoment.com, where I rank the WWE Superstars based on their previous week's performances. And then you can also find the Fantasy League there, also at WWEFantasyLeague.com, to see how our teams are doing, who's picking up points on all of our separate rosters, to see who will be heading the way leading into Royal Rumble and then onwards towards WrestleMania, where our season will end.
That's it for this episode, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thank you for your support. Adios for now. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.